Hello. I'm so excited to be here this week again. I will be here live streaming every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, which is also 3 p.m. Pacific. I'm Bunny Luna. Hello. I did my first live last week with my mom, Willow, and it went really well, and I really enjoyed it. And this week, I at first was probably going to just do an oracle card reading, but I then decided to kind of switch it up and do something else instead. I've been thinking a lot about ecosexuality the last few days, and I've been posting about it a little bit on Instagram, and there have been a lot of people that have been like messaging me with questions and curiosity and like sharing their viewpoint on ecosexuality with me. So I thought that I would share a little bit about ecosexuality and talk about just like a basic introduction to ecosexuality, what it is, what it's not, how I express it, and why it's important. So without further ado, welcome to my ecosexuality class. So ecosexuality is basically where you identify as someone who sees the earth as a lover instead of as a resource to exploit. This can show up in many different ways. But before I get too far into this, I wanted to acknowledge where I got my information from. I first learned about ecosexuality through an essay by Charles Eisenstein. Once this is over, I'll link to his website, and he has a YouTube channel also. So make sure you go follow him and watch all of his videos and like read his essays. They're incredible. But I learned about ecosexuality through Charles Eisenstein's essay, The Ecosexual Awakening. That essay basically put words to how I had felt my entire life and put like a label on something that I didn't know could have a label. And it gave me a lot more to think about. And ever since then, I have looked up as much information as I can online about ecosexuality. There's some information available, but not really to the extent that I've like just personally thought about it and like worked through things in my head about ecosexuality. So I wanted to share some of the like basics with you, and then also my personal opinions and thoughts on it. So I think it's important to like let you know that I have a basis in what like other people consider ecosexuality, and then I also am like adding to it with my own information and my own opinion and knowledge on ecosexuality and what it means for me. But this in no way is saying that there's only one way to be ecosexual, and there's like only these certain types of people are able to call themselves ecosexual, because that's not what this is about. So like I mentioned already, ecosexuality is seeing the earth as a lover instead of a resource to exploit. And that can show up for people in a lot of different ways. And I also want to acknowledge that the way that we show up here as ecosexuals is going to be different for everyone. And there really is no one way to be an ecosexual. So I just want to like reiterate the importance of that. Like everyone is a unique individual, so everyone is going to experience ecosexuality in a different way. So what it is for me personally, it's a way for me to connect with myself and connect with the earth around me and connect with other people. I might be like rushing into giving you a whole bunch of information, and I'm trying to not like go too fast and like go from 0 to 100. So if anyone has any questions, anyone that's here already, feel free to put them in the live chat, and I will be happy to explain anything that you're like wondering about. So I want to bring up the phrase Mother Earth because for me, that is both like amazing and beautiful, and also kind of concerning at the same time. So the reason I say that, yes, we are all of the earth. Like we exist here because of the earth. Like if you think of how massive our solar system is, like just the solar system that we are aware of as human beings with like NASA and all of the space things and like all of the satellites, like the universe that we are aware of is fucking massive. Like it is huge, right? And then out of all of the things that could ever exist, the earth is like the perfect distance from the sun to have just the right amount of heat, just the right amount of cool, the right amount of sun, the right amount of shade, like shadow, for plants and animals and human beings to exist, right? And if you think of just how small of a chance that there is of us existing, right? It's like, holy cow. And then on top of that, like time is also like just we exist here in this moment right now in 2020 out of the like billions and billions of years that have existed. That's massive, right? So like we're here for a purpose. There's a reason behind all of this, but also at the same time there might not be any reason. It might just be like we exist, and like that's the reason, right? Okay, so we as human beings, as like creatures that live on this planet, we can exist because of this planet. Like the only reason we are here is because we have been able to be here because of the earth, right? We get all our food from the earth. We get our shelter out of the things that we make from the earth. We get water from the earth. We get the air from the earth. Like everything that we have ever wanted or needed has all come from the earth, except for like maybe, a few asteroids or something that have hit the earth and have, everything is of the earth. Like it's made of the same types of materials as the earth, right? So we are all, every single one of us, humans, animals, insects, bacteria, forests, rivers, like ecosystems, clouds, we all exist interconnected with each other. And that's really powerful to me. That's like, if you just think about it for a moment, like, wow, we exist here because of all of the other things that exist, and they all exist at the same time that I exist. So like there's a purpose for this. And I truly believe that like our purpose here is to love and take care of each other. And that's not a one-way street. Like you love and take care of yourself, and you love and take care of other people, and other people also love and take care of you. Like we all need each other. We're all here together. We're interconnected. Like all of us, humans, animals. I just listed a whole lot of, beings and entities and energies, and like we're all here for each other. And we couldn't exist without each other. And the earth is the reason that we're all here. So I can definitely see us saying, Mother Earth. But at the same time, when you think of mothers, do you also think of people who give and give and give and never really receive? Do you think of people who are sometimes taken advantage of? people who it is expected of them to do all of the housework, all of the cooking, all of the cleaning, all of the child care, all of the things around the home that like keep the home going. That's, I mean, in our patriarchal society, like that's what is kind of expected. And there isn't a lot of like representation of like mutual care with a mother. Like it's usually like the mother is giving, the mother is helping, the mother is providing for. But then there, in our society, a lot of times like there isn't a lot of representation of people taking care of mothers, people honoring mothers, people like understanding that mothers need to be receiving care too. So while I think it is beautiful that we say Mother Earth, I also want to like point out how sometimes calling Earth kind of gives it the energy of, I'm going to take from you, but I'm not going to give back. I avoid saying Mother Earth, and instead I say like the Earth, or I consider the Earth a partner or a lover or a teacher or a friend, because all of those things you usually think of as reciprocal, like you give and you take. You don't just receive, you also give. So for me, that's extremely important, because while yes, like we literally have to have the things that the earth provides in order to live, we also need to give back to the earth. And not just because we feel like we have to, but because we love the earth, because we know the earth deserves love and care and connection and be regenerated. So for me, it's important to point that out. And that's another thing for me. Like, I like to say the earth is my lover, because when I think of a lover, I think of someone or the earth that I want to spend time with, that I care about their well-being, and that is how I view the earth. I acknowledge that I receive sustenance from the earth. I acknowledge that my actions have an impact on the earth, and I choose to live my life in a way that is honoring the earth and loving the earth and caring for the earth. Yeah, so I I love the earth so much. And that includes all of the beings that are here living on the earth with us. So I also want to talk about what ecosexuality is not. Ecosexuality is not only like a way to like sexually orient yourself in the world. I'll get to that in a moment, actually. But it's also just like, it's not something that it's not something that you use to hold against someone else. It's not something that I'm able to use as a label, but you're not because of this reason. It's not something that's the same for everyone. My definition of ecosexuality is different from the next person's, is different from the next person's, is different from the next person's. Like, the number of people there are on the planet that are ecosexuals, like, there are that many definitions of ecosexuality for individuals. So like, it's not a one size fits all. Well, kind of it is, but it's not all one size. It does fit all, but it's not all one size. It's multiple sizes and colors and shapes and textures and yeah, but there's not only one way to describe it, because there are an infinite number of ways that it can be, simply because there are so many of us. I see I have a question from Dawn. Do you feel that you are connecting with Native Americans of the past when walking in the wild? Because actually, I think I'm going to get back to this question, because I think what I'm going to talk about is going to kind of hit on that some, and then I'll come back and elaborate more. So I haven't forgotten about you, Dawn. I do want to share how I personally express my ecosexuality. And like I said, that's going to be different for everybody. But me personally, the ways that I express ecosexuality, this will not be a comprehensive list, because I express it so many different ways, and it would take like days for me to like list out everything. So just some examples. One of my favorite ways to express my ecosexuality is to be nude in nature. It's to have my bare feet on the ground, or my bare butt, or just like lay in the grass. Another way that I express my ecosexuality is by opening a window and letting the breeze come into my room, or by smelling a rose, or by cooking with fresh fruits and vegetables and appreciating and honoring how they are nourishing for my body. Another way I express my ecosexuality is through listening to the birds and the frogs and the insects that are all around us. Listening to I feel the love right now, just thinking about it. I express my ecosexuality by visiting this baby poplar tree in the woods every day and spending time with it. I express my ecosexuality by recycling, by reusing things, by never buying a fucking water bottle ever again in my life. I express my ecosexuality by not taking a shower every day. I conserve water when I can. Also, in that same vein, like, I wear clothes multiple times before I wash them, because if they're not dirty, then I'm not gonna wash them. I express my ecosexuality by donating money to people who are people and organizations that are protecting and conserving our environments. I express my ecosexuality by learning how I could do better as a person in terms of the environment. I express my ecosexuality by talking to plants, like sitting outside and just like being there with nature. I express my ecosexuality by like looking at photos and videos of nature. If I'm not, like, if I'm in a city and I can't physically be outside with nature, then I'll look at it. Like, that's better than nothing, right? Like, if you're away from your partner, wouldn't you want to see pictures and videos of them? Wouldn't that make you feel better? So there are so many ways to express your ecosexuality. That's just a really small number of ways that I do personally. And I can't have a conversation about ecosexuality without also talking about our actions and how they impact ourselves and others, and why ecosexuality matters to me personally, and hopefully to you too. I want to acknowledge that colonization, capitalism, cis-heteropatriarchy, white supremacy, imperialism, racism, like, this is all interconnected, and it's like, it affects all of us. and it affects the earth. And all of those things that I just mentioned affect all of us and the earth in a negative way. And I bring this up because you can't really have a conversation about helping yourself and others and the planet without also talking about these things, because you can't help yourself and others and the planet if these things are still happening in our societies. So I think it's extremely important to acknowledge that and point that out and bring it up, because like literally it affects us all. Some of us in more and deeper ways than others. I personally have a whole lot of privilege. Even though I am a non-binary person, I'm viewed as a white woman. And with that view of me by society, I have a lot of privilege. I have skinny privilege. I'm not disabled, so I have that privilege. I have a lot of privileges. And with that privilege also comes a responsibility to name the things that are going wrong so that we can do something about it and make them right, or go in the direction of making them right. And this connects to ecosexuality because literally, like I said already, we're all interconnected. Like what happens to me happens to all of us in one way or another. What I do to myself, I do to all of us in one way or another. And this also includes the earth. If you need an example, if I am someone who doesn't really have any boundaries and I just let everyone kind of do whatever they want with me and my energy, then that's the kind of energy I'm bringing into the world. And that's the kind of energy that I'm also putting toward my actions. And that includes and all of my actions also impact the earth and other people. So if you look at it from that lens, like everything that I do really does actually matter because it affects me and I'm of the earth. And since I am interconnected with everything else that is alive, or that we maybe don't even think is alive, like a forest or a river, but me personally, yes, I do think it's alive. So they're living beings, energetically, whether we understand them or not. So if I just if terrible things happen to me and I let them happen, even though I see them coming, then how am I going to protect the earth from the same thing happening if I don't even do that for myself? On the other side, like the same side of that coin, just on the other side of that coin, if I'm someone who has strong boundaries and I know what I want and I know what I feel is right, and I know the way that I deserve to be treated, then I understand that of everyone else. And I also understand that for the earth. So if I deserve to be treated with respect, I am interconnected with everyone else. Therefore, everyone else also deserves to be treated with respect, including the earth. So if someone tries to disrespect or harm me or someone else or the earth, then we know that is not a good thing. That's a negative thing. That's something that shouldn't happen. So that's something that I personally would want to do something about. So that it triggered the way everything is connected and everything is your actions matter in terms of yourself, your community, and the earth. So I have so much to say about ecosexuality, y'all. And I'm already at 25 minutes. I'm going to try not to talk for too long. So we're all connected. Everything we do matters. Even the small things really do matter, because guess what? Small things add up. Every day that I recycle, or every water bottle that I don't buy, or every person whose heart I touch by being gentle and kind with them, or every like plant that I water in my garden. Like everything, it adds up over time. Your actions add up. Everything matters because they all add up, and it all impacts everything else. So ecosexuality is important because for me, it's the way that I look at the world. I really look at the world through an ecosexual lens. Like, how am I impacting myself, others, in the world? How are my actions impacting myself, others, in the world? How are other people's actions impacting myself, themselves, me, other people, and the world? And when you look at the earth through an ecosexual lens, your actions line up in a more eco-friendly way. Like, I see the earth as a lover and not a resource to exploit. So I don't want to just like tear down all of the forests and build apartment complexes. Like, I firmly believe that we should put a moratorium on all new construction for like at least a month or longer. Like, there are so many empty buildings and houses. Why don't we use the ones that are already built instead of building new ones? Let's leave like our natural landscapes alone. They have been dwindling over the last couple hundred years. Like, people, I've been reading so much of Charles Eisenstein's books, and I just finished his climate book. And it talks a lot about like the destruction of our earth, and it's kind of hard to read at some points for me, like personally. It may not be for you. It's a lot of like, there are a lot of statistics, and like, in the last 100 years, these things have happened, and this much of the earth, like, of our ecosystems have been destroyed and stuff like that. Like, that's hard for me to hear because it hurts me inside. But also I feel like it's important to pay attention to that kind of thing, even though it hurts, because how are we supposed to do anything about it unless we acknowledge that it's happening? And with that acknowledgement comes pain and grief and sadness. And we can't make any actions without feeling all of that first. So like, there are steps to like making things better. We have to like first acknowledge what's wrong before we can do anything that's better. Otherwise, we're just going to keep going as we have been for however long. So that's why ecosexuality is important to me. I also wanted to talk about how ecosexuality is inclusive of gender and sexuality. Because for me, the way that I see ecosexuality, I want to scoot closer because I feel like I keep just like leaning towards the computer. So I'm just going to like get closer. The way that I see ecosexuality is super inclusive, because since there are like an infinite number of combinations of humans of like the way that we see ourselves and understand ourselves, then there's an infinite number of like how we can be and embody ecosexuality. So when we talk about ecosexuality, a lot of people are like, oh, do you have sex with trees? For me, I don't personally. I know there are people that do. But also, maybe I kind of do, because when you think about what sex means, I think about like my definition of sex is different from other people's. Like, a lot of people, like the general like cis hetero patriarchy understanding of sex is penis and vagina penetration, right? That is super limited. That means like there are a lot of people who have been having sex that like can't say they've been having sex because of their gender or their sexuality or like any number of reasons, their ability. Like there are a lot of people that may not have had real sex if that's the only way you're gonna define sex. So me personally, I define sex as a meaningful, consensual interaction between one or more people. And that's usually involving our senses in a pleasurable way, right? So if we change our understanding of what sex is to a more inclusive definition, I do have sex with trees. I get great pleasure from standing at the foot of a super tall tree and just like touching it and looking up and like seeing the leaves move in the wind and feeling the bark under my fingers and feeling the ground under my feet and the breeze in my face, maybe. Like, hell yeah, I have sex with the earth. It feels so good to be in presence, in pleasure, in my senses with the earth in so many different ways. Mud between my toes? Yes, that's sex. Like just if we open our mind to what sex is, then sex becomes very easily and readily available to us in many different ways. So back to the inclusivity part. So if our definition of sex is broader than just penis and vagina penetration, which I hope I hope your definition of sex is much broader than that. Because if not, you might be missing out on a lot of pleasure and a lot of sex. I would like to talk about like how gender comes into this too. As someone, so I already said I'm non-binary. To be more specific, I'm agender, which if you don't know what that is, I'll go ahead and tell you. I was going to say, like, look at my gender and sexuality video because I have an 1.5-hour like live video that I did previously that I recorded that is available on my website that you can watch, and it's all about sexuality and gender. That's at bunnyluna.com if you're curious. But I'll just tell you what agender is. Agender is basically like I don't see myself as having a gender at all. I'm not a man. I'm not a woman. I'm a human being. I'm a person, and I exist. My name is Bunny. Hi. I was born with the genitals that most people associate with female, but I don't. So as an agender person, I kind of like felt like I don't really have a label that describes me very well in terms of who I'm like sexually attracted to. Because a lot of people kind of conflate gender and sexuality. Like they like mix them together as kind of the same thing, but they're totally different. But they do have a lot to do with each other. Because like if you're gay, that usually means, you're a man who is attracted to other men, right? Or if you're a lesbian, this is very broad. Like there's way more to all of these sexuality and gender labels than I'm talking about. But just like kind of broad overview basics. If you're a lesbian, then you're a woman who is attracted to women, right? But as an agender person, as someone without a gender, how do I describe the kinds of people that I'm into if like I don't really have a super specific label for that? Like, okay, I could say like I'm trans and I like trans people. That kind of makes me gay, right? But it's like, I don't know. I just never really felt like I had a label that fit me personally very well in terms of sexuality. and ecosexuality like completely is open for me to use as the the best way that it fits me personally, because it's different for everyone, right? And for me personally, I'm sexually like I'm also a demisexual, which that means I'm like I don't have a sexual, so I like on the one hand, there's a lot of people that I think are attractive, but most people I wouldn't want to like have sex with because I don't really know them. Like that to me, that doesn't feel right. I wouldn't like I couldn't do a one night stand. Like I need to know someone and be like comfortable with them, like close to them, and then okay, maybe I do have sexual feelings for you. um, and for me, ecosexuality is just a huge open door for in terms of labels for me, because like I have been attracted to a lot of different genders, and I feel like the ecosexual label allows me to like include my gender, which is no gender basically, other people's genders, my demisexuality, like all together. So when I say I'm ecosexual in terms of like who I'm attracted to, I'm attracted to living beings that I have a connection with. Like, it doesn't matter what, like, for me, it doesn't matter what's in your pants, what color your skin is, how tall or fat you are. Like, to me, what matters is my connection to you and like how we relate to each other and like how well we know each other and like just how our relationship is in general. And I can't, there's not like a super descriptive way to say that other than ecosexuality for me. So I think that's really awesome because you can kind of tailor it to yourself, like based on what works for you. And you might have to like describe things to people, but like, what's so bad about having a conversation? um, so yeah, I thought it would be a good thing for me to like at least describe some of that to you too. So back to our questions. While I'm like in between, because I think I've explained everything pretty well so far. Please let me know if you have any questions. Ask them in the little chat box thing. But that's like a brief overview of what ecosexuality is. So Dawn earlier asked, do I feel it when I'm connecting with Native Americans of the past when I'm walking in the wild? I personally, I'm going to say yes and no. Because yeah, this is a really layered question for me. Okay, so I'm going to kind of break it down. Native Americans, so First Nations people, the people who have been colonized, the people who white colonial settlers kind of basically genocided them. I don't know, like, what's the verb for genocide? Like, the people, that's a whole other topic. But like the people who were here first, the natives of this land, white colonists basically killed them and or made them like go to reservations out west. Most of them, I can't get into the whole conversation, but like there's a really rough history there with Native Americans. I mean, because this like some white person named this America. Like this is not like this land that we're on is called America because of white colonists. Like the native peoples didn't call it America. This is complicated for me personally because I have a lot of feelings around this because I personally am the product of okay, I want to give a trigger warning because I want to describe this in a way that is personal and difficult, and I want to give it like the right amount of information, but I also want to acknowledge that it could be triggering for people. Okay, so trigger warning. I have I have an ancestor on my mom's dad's side who was on the original Dawes list, which was like the list of Native Americans that was made by the colonizers, right? So I do have Native blood in my veins. But most of my genetic makeup is white, is the colonizing, settlers, white people from Europe. Like, I am both of these. And I know, I'm going to say I know for a fact that trigger warning right here. Rape was a big part of how my lineage happened. And that's hard to acknowledge. Like, that's difficult. Like, that's in my history. But I think it's important to acknowledge that because, like, I exist. I'm alive. I'm glad that I'm here. I think that it's important that I know as much of my history as I can. And I also want to acknowledge that, like, I have both of those sides within me, one person. Like, I'm the colonizer and I'm the colonized. Like, I'm both of these things in one body. And that's kind of hard sometimes. So, Dawn, when you ask, do I feel if I'm connecting with Native Americans when I'm walking in the wild? Yes and no. Because I acknowledge that the land that I am on was once occupied by natives. And also no, because, I mean, I don't really think about people of the past when I'm in the present with myself, if that makes sense. I think more about, like, the spirits of the plants and the place. And I mean, honestly, though, that's kind of also the spirit of the natives. Like, we're all connected. So, it's a complicated question. You probably didn't realize how complicated it would be when you asked it. But, like, yeah, I do and I don't. I think it's important to acknowledge and understand that, like, the land we're on does not belong to us, because literally it doesn't belong to any of us, because it's the earth, and, like, the earth is its own being, and how can we own someone else? Also, I'm reading Charles Eisenstein's book, Sacred Economics. Like, I know I bought like 4 of his books and I've just been like devouring them. So that's a lot of what I'm talking about. But he has this whole book is kind of mind blowing to me, and I love it so much already. But he has a really good argument on how, like, the ownership of land itself is, like, malicious. So maybe in another video at another time, I'll go over some of that and like read some excerpts from his book. But yeah, complicated question. Let's see. Hi, Doug. Hi, Brian. So glad y'all are here. Let's see. Doug mentioned Amerigo Vespucci, the Italian map maker. Yeah, that's why it's called America. Not because of people who actually lived here. Dawn says, I was wondering if you feel you appreciated nature as much as the Native Americans by observing and revering what you experience. Maybe. That's a hard question to answer because, like, I don't know the experience of natives. Like, in part, I am Native, but in a lot of other parts, I'm not. And I don't know what their experiences are. So I don't know how to compare myself to that. Okay. I would like to maybe go over some. Actually, you know what? I think I would like to finish this off. Unless anybody else has any questions, please let me know if you have any questions. But if you don't, I want to finish this off with a little excerpt from a book that's actually not a Charles Eisenstein book. It's a different book, but I have to get it. I'll be right back. It's called Energetic Boundaries by Cindy Dale. But I just wanted to talk about, this is going to kind of like switch up the topic just a little bit, but I think it's really connected because we're all connected. And I want to share it with you. All right. I just have to find the section. I'm just going to read this whole section because it's so good. Okay. This is about your relational boundaries. Greening the world is what she says. Green is the shade of new life, mowed grass, young leaves, freshness, and the dreams of life. Green is the combination of the yellow of the sun and the blue of the celestial realms. It also represents your relational boundaries, the energetic fields that link all parts of you to yourself, the divine, and the rest of the world. Good relationships promote justice, fairness, honor, courage, and the other high virtues. They flourish through accurate and loving communication, care, and compassion. Relationships also require appropriate relational boundaries, boundaries that distinguish us from others, but also invite bonding with others. Ideally, these energy borders turn away the riffraff and certainly any dangers, but set out the welcome mat for joyful friends, partners, and all other sorts of companions, even companion animals. We've all experienced less than perfect relationships. Sometimes it may have felt like we didn't choose to be in those relationships, and maybe we didn't. We aren't in charge of whom a company assigns to be our boss. We don't get to pick our relatives or even our children, at least not in the sense of ordering what we want out of a catalog. But we do choose how to respond to people unless there's something crooked or distorted about your relational boundaries. Having strong yet fluid relational boundaries is like wearing the zipper of our hearts on the inside rather than on the outside of us. Our true self is able to decide when to open our hearts and let someone in, or when we're open to stepping out and mingling. If we're tired or need a little alone time, we can close ourselves up a little bit or zip up entirely to get the rest we need. Healthy relational boundaries attract people who will support our spiritual mission and core personality. Such boundaries will deter, if not totally repel, individuals who might hurt, harm, ridicule, or demean us. When someone unappealing or harmful does enter our energy field, we'll go on high alert. Our intuitive senses will turn on. If the person is a little negative, we'll get a twinge, a sensation, a bad feeling, maybe even a skip of our heart or a slight headache. If they are downright horrific, our internal signal pulls out all the stops. Our heart will hammer, our body will shake. Objects might even knock over in our presence without us touching them because our boundaries are sending such strong, energetic signals. We could receive predictive dreams that show us what could go wrong if we let this person into our lives, or the divine might speak to us directly or through a friend. Our relational boundaries are able to protect and alert us through one particular bodily organ and its emanating fields, the heart. This, the most electrical and magnetic organ in your body, is the key to establishing the energetic borders you need to ensure that you have supportive relationships and to save you from disasters. The power of the heart is well documented. Its magnetic component generates a field that is 5,000 times greater than the magnetic field produced by your brain, while its electrical field is 60 times greater than that of your brain. The heart's magnetic field can be measured from several feet away from your body. The small fist-sized organ is highly affected by different emotions and relationships, and the most positive relationships produce measurable and healthy results in every area of your body and mind. Furthermore, the heart's electromagnetic field, which we'll call your relationship field, interacts with the heart fields of other people, transferring feelings and even synchronizing heartbeats, even if those other people are not present. I'm going to also interject here and say we can do the same thing with the earth. The Institute of Heart Math has proven the electromagnetic field generated by the heart permeates every cell of the body, actually synchronizing every cell to each other. The rhythm of your heart, in fact, creates fields within fields that are so intense that they can alter the cells and DNA of a baby inside its mother's womb. Positive relational boundaries ensure us a joyful social life, a loving community, and good friends. It's a well-known fact that people with an affectionate community live longer, are happier, and are more prosperous than people who are alienated. They also have less heart disease and are healthier overall. When centered in love, the heart produces hormones and other chemicals that support our optimum health at every level. All this is possible because the heart is a field, not only an organ. When people touch, are close to one another, or even think of each other, one person's heart signal can affect the other's brain rhythms and moods. This means that our cardiac field or relational energy field carries vital relational information. In fact, the information emanating from your heart energetically tells people how to treat you. So I wanted to connect that with the earth, because all of those things that it says about our hearts and connecting and being able to synchronize with others, we can also do that with the earth. There have been other studies where there's this thing called coherence. Our hearts, when we're in coherence, so coherence is like when we are in a relaxed state, our parasympathetic nervous system is like in its process, which is like our rest and digest, and we're like relaxed and centered and like feeling good and just calm. Our heart naturally goes into coherence, and coherence is that state of calm. And in coherence, like your heart and your breath. So like when you're breathing slower, your heartbeat gets slower. And when you're in coherence, the average breaths that you take is usually about 6 breaths a minute. So that's like an inhale for 5 seconds and an exhale for 5 seconds is 6 breaths a minute. And when we're in coherence and we're in that 6 breaths a minute, did you know that the earth also breathes? Like, the Earth has its own magnetic fields, and the Earth has a way that it breathes like energetically, with like the fluctuations of the magnetic fields. And did you know that the Earth's natural like coherent state is about 6 breaths per minute? So we literally like are built to be in coherence with the Earth. Like our bodies are made like when we're in our optimum state of coherence, like we literally synchronize with the Earth. Also, I think it is like not a coincidence at all that the color of our heart chakra, which is green because of plants, because of the Earth, because of aliveness. I think it's no mistake that our like the color of our heart chakra is green. I think it's no mistake at all. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you. I thought that was really powerful for me when I learned about it. That like my optimum state is like matching to the Earth. I could talk like forever about how amazing the planet is and Earth and how much I want to take care of it and how like ecosexual I am. But it's been almost an hour already. So I want to open up for anyone who has any questions. Doug says, thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful. Yay. Thank you. I'm glad that you enjoyed that. It was super like powerful for me to learn about that. And then like adding that to the information from this book about like our heart's magnetic field is 5,000 times greater than our brains. Like we are meant to feel. We are meant to like have feeling experiences. We are meant to have emotions. We are meant to feel. We are built that way. Why do we have skin that we can feel all of it? Why do we have eyes to see, nose to smell, mouth to taste, ears to hear? Like, why any of it? Because we are meant to feel it and like experience it and be sensual in our bodies. Like we're celestial beings in earthly bodies. Like it's on purpose because we're supposed to be here and experience it. So yeah, I'm so ecosexual, y'all. So I wanted to share that with you. I hope that you feel ecosexual also. I feel like more people are ecosexual than they realize, because I think it's just a matter of like people like knowing that ecosexuality is a thing and knowing that you don't have to like fuck a tree to be ecosexual. I mean, there are people who do like have sex with trees, and depending on your definition of sex, like you might have already had sex with a tree. I know I have. I have sex with mud and dirt and leaves and like trees and like the wind and grass and the planet, the earth. Like, yeah, okay. Yeah, my definition of sex is very different from the like cis hetero patriarchal colonized perspective on sex. Okay, so I don't see any other questions. I'll give you like 1 more minute for questions. And if there are no other questions, then I'm going to end this live stream. While I'm waiting for questions, I would like to invite you to my website, bunnyluna.com. I have a lot of free stuff on there. Like I post a free photo set every week. I'm a visual artist. I take self-portraits. I take photos of other people, and 99% of all of my photos are nude people, because I believe that nudity is amazing, and it doesn't always have to do with sex, but it could if you want it to. I believe that the nude body is beautiful. We're all connected, and I want to celebrate all of us. So, of course, my favorite subject is nudes in nature, especially if it's like more than one person. That's my favorite because I love when we're like actually connecting with each other. Usually it's more about the experience in the moment than the photos, to be honest. So if you're interested in seeing some of the things that I've created in the past or doing more discussions like this, I do a live video gathering every Thursday for members of my website. And I have a schedule on my website at bunnyluna.com/schedule to see what I'm going to talk about. I have ecosexuality in the schedule, and that'll be more of a back and forth for me and members where people can actually like talk with me about things. So if you are curious about more of this kind of stuff and you like the things that I say and you want to know more about me, feel free to go to my website, bunnyluna.com. I would love to have you there. Yeah, every Thursday I do a live video gathering at 6 p.m. Eastern. Like I do a free one here on YouTube every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, I just want to give opportunities for people to connect with me because I really enjoy connecting with others. And I know that we all have a lot to learn from each other. So I have a lot of information to share with you about me and my views on the world. So I would love to connect with you and see what you have to say too. I love you so much. Thank you for being here. I love you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.